Welcome, everyone. So, today on The Music Explained, we are joined by DyShon Penn, a Philly born artist, songwriter, and vocal producer whose pen has touched everything from underground talent to major label records. A finalist on Making the Band and Apollo Live winner, DeShawn's journey is about resilience, soul, and storytelling. From co developing groups like Good Girl to writing for shows like Empire, he's been quietly shaping the sound of a generation. Welcome to the show, Deshaun.
Well, I appreciate that intro. Thank you.
You're welcome. Uh, I'll kick it off, send over to Kate to begin
Okay.
the conversation.
Okay, I'll kick it off. Deshaun, it's so impressive what you do. And even looking through your Instagram, connecting with you prior to this, like you do a little bit of everything. You do
Thanks.
A&R, you build groups, artist development, you do your own music. There's
Mhm.
there's so much to be talked about. I just want to kick it off by getting into how did you get into this crazy world?
Okay. Well, I think that part starts before me. Um, my father and my mother both attended Dell State College at the time, university. And my father was a musician. He played saxophone and he was attending Dell State at the time for music. My mom was very talented as well. She's a talented singer and a creative. Um, but my father's younger brother was a musician as well and heavily involved in playing multiple instruments. So that foundation of creativity I was exposed to at a young age. There's actually pictures of me as like a little kid with access to instruments that were far bigger than me. And so those influences are what um, Malcolm Gladwell refers to as outliers. You know what I mean? So my exposure to those things at a young age put that root for creativity and music in me. However, I would say that my father drifted away from like a life focused on music, even though it was still a hobby for him. Later in life, it wasn't something he was pursuing actively. My parents happened to divorce when I was around 6 years old, and so when they split, kind of an important outlier is that since I lived with my dad after that, who wasn't really focused on music as much anymore, other things that I was exposed to, uh, and other paths and things kind of built up other soft skills and skills that end up being part of what I do as a developer, an A&R, a mentor to other artists. So both things kind of merged, eventually merged. The opportunity to do a lot of writing that I did, this is outside of music, just being a writer and a creative writer school, those things ended up pouring into my ability to apply that skill set to writing when it came to doing music. And so eventually what would end up happening is in high school, I ended up joining a group called After Hours. And that's what really kind of springboarded me into doing music more seriously towards the end of high school. Prior to that, I did play drums in middle school. Uh, I was in the choir, chorus.
I was too.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
had that shared
And
experience.
yeah, and that was a middle school thing. And I'd like to be able to nobly say that that was just something I just was super passionate about doing. But quite frankly, I was in the band and the pretty girls were in the chorus. You know what I'm saying? So eventually it's like, I want to, spend some days
Maybe
in
I'm
the
changing what I'm
yeah,
doing.
you know what I'm saying? So I mixed it up, you know what I mean? And what that leads to, I say all that to say that the universe has a funny way of like putting you in certain positions. So because I was in chorus, what ends up happening is one day, and I still remember the guy's name. His name is Sean Anthony. Had a solo, in the choir, and he wasn't there that day. And I kind of playfully just sang it when the part came up, um, and the reaction was really good. Which was funny because I sat right next to this girl. I think her name was Nicole Church, and she was um, a bit more seasoned at singing than I was, or whatever. Though I had a talent for it, and so these different people's reaction to that made it so that the next day when Sean Anthony came back and heard about how everyone had reacted to me doing the solo, he didn't want the solo anymore. That in combination with these twins that their mother used to watch me, Sharon and Sheree Askins, uh, they kind of got me into to singing for people because there was a song by the group Guy, "Goodbye Love" is still one of my favorite songs. That they asked me to kind of sing with them. You know what I mean? So they wanted to sing it for people, and I kind of had a nice voice, so they would ask me to sing it with them, and so that thing created a bit of a security blanket, or, an opportunity. Like nobody was going to turn down the pretty twins. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Yeah, why
And
not?
me,
I
yeah,
know.
yeah, right. And me
Hey,
getting to kind of tag along with them, and then kind of get a reaction. Those are some of the foundational things that kind of got me into it.
And it's grown from there. I mean, from
Yeah,
everything that I can see, it's so interesting and, like, just looking through, like, your social media and your Instagram even before our call, you are, so deep in the artist development piece of
yeah.
things, and I'd love to have, more of a conversation about that
Okay, yeah,
because it's so clear to me just from all of your posts, like, how much you genuinely invest and care for the acts that you're working with, and
yeah.
we've definitely had, conversations on the podcast before, me and Usman, where, that can be a rarity in this
Yeah.
space where, sometimes people maybe get into, management and that side of things for like the wrong reasons, for the money and
Uh-huh.
things like that.
Yeah.
And I just want to, hear your perspectives on what it's been like to kind of grow on that side and pour back into those people.
Yeah. So um the outliers for that are that as I said, my father wasn't necessarily focused on music anymore. But my religious background at that time was that my dad became heavily involved as a Jehovah's Witness, right?
Yeah.
And so the cliche about that religion is the experience of going from door to door on Saturday mornings and knocking on doors,
Yeah.
what have you. But the core underlier of that is teaching something, right? So the the experience I've had with that, at least 10 years of like going from door to door, and then also developing in what they call the theocratic ministry school, gave me opportunity to write. You're taking a piece of the Bible that you're giving a sermon about, you're writing an introduction, a conclusion, and you're getting up there and you're sharing that thing. Those things, those components became like foundation for me being able to teach people and share ideas with people. When you combine that with my experiences and being in groups, I joined a group, like I said, when I was around in like high school, called After Hours. My experiences with that and my religious background, those things combined to build me up when it came to just developing myself and then sharing ideas with other people. Um, Once I moved to the Philadelphia area, because I came here to Philly when I was around like 19. Um, I had eventually left the first group that I was in. Um, just at the time, weren't as committed to it in a certain way that I was. And I had been in a contest that I saw like a commercial for, randomly saw a commercial for that was in Philly. And so the first group I was in came and did that contest. I ended up meeting another group that was there. We would eventually beat that group and like win like a deal with like an independent. Um, but once we started to get into that type of work that it would take to actually do original music, it was a little bit more complicated than the work we had done previously. And so My time with the first group ended. I joined the second group, came here to Philly, and that exposed me to a lot of different producers and other songwriters doing it on a higher level than what I had been previously. That process eventually leads to me, um, as we just kind of speed along. I eventually started going to New York. I eventually became a solo artist again and got an opportunity to do a lot of work on my own performance and writing as an individual in New York. And seeing the experiences that I got there, like I wrote in house at Bad Boy and at Sony eventually. Uh, what ends up happening is at an open mic that I was going to that was hosted by Ron Grant. He used to be associated with Sony. He's now since passed away. So may he rest in peace. But he was an amazing vocalist, but he hosted this incredible open mic. And that exposed me to so many other levels of musicianship and other solo artists. Singing at that event one particular day, here's what's crazy about it. So one of the guys from that second group I joined, he was now in another group. And so me and his group members went to New York to this open mic. It cost $15 to get in. And then if you wanted to sit at the tables, you had to pay 15, at least spend at least $15 to sit at the tables. I didn't have that money. So I got in, but I couldn't eat it to sit at the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're there. So now after I perform, I'm just kind of like mingling, you know what I'm saying? Trying to like not be awkward, like kind of just rolling around the,
Yeah.
the, the event.
Doing your thing, doing your thing.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like most people are like chilling at tables and stuff. And so because of that thing, I walked past this one particular table and this executive, his name was Larry Rock Campbell, stopped me. Now, I wouldn't have known him from Adam, but he kind of grabs my arm a little bit and he's like, yo, man, I thought you did a dope job, blah, 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 blah. And he asked me if I would be willing to reference some songs. Now, he doesn't know I don't live in New York, technically. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But he was from Sony, and I just was like, yeah, sure. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, that's the opportunity right there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So what ends up happening with that to kind of sum it up is a couple things. We do these songs, like 6 or so songs that he had or what have you, I help with. And then on the 7th song, what happens, he asked me if I wrote songs, and I was like, "Yes." And so we end up working on this song that I had, like, the piano melody for and stuff. So I end up playing on the reference and wrote the song or what have you, and that song is the song that got placed. So when that happens, I actually asked because it was a song for a group, if the guys who did take me to New York for that opportunity to even happen could come up and help with the demo, uh, just to kind of repay them for, you know what I mean, being the reason I even got there. Through those extended sessions, he tells me his backstory on himself, about himself. This is the producer, Larry Campbell, A&R in-house producer. He was like making 6 figures. He was a musician from Detroit, like a bass player, but he was getting to produce on in-house acts for Sony and Jive. It was Jive Records at the time. So that's Britney Spears, Joe was over there, Backstreet Boys, all that stuff. He's getting to do that stuff, but I wouldn't have known him from Adam. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
But his peers in the industry knew him. And he was having success. Plus, he was getting a salary, you know, and and after hearing his story, that was the pivot for me. I was like, this is what I really want to do. I love performing and I'm an artist, but um, a key point about me at the time is that I was already a father, right? So I had a very young son. And as much as I like performing and can do my own thing, I still was like trying to plot out what course was going to allow me to do music with a certain lot of amount of consistency without it turning into like my life being a mess. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've seen like just how it can be, right? I was like, how am I going to figure out a way to do what this guy is doing? And I can still always do my thing as an artist if I want as well, but I want to figure out a route to this. And so that started a certain path for me. When you jump forward, a guy that I used to sing with that I met back in Delaware when I lived in Delaware, who had an incredible voice and still has an incredible voice, is a brother like a year older than me named Devin. Just like I saw that contest that brought me to Philly, I happened to randomly see an advertisement for making a band on Facebook. And I thought that I could encourage him by saying, yo, let's go do this audition. Cause my life was like all in on music. His gift was incredible, but he still was doing what I like call like civilian stuff. Like he had a regular job. He still was kind of
Okay. Yeah.
still doing more of that stuff. He used to do it all in, but he wasn't as much as involved with it as heavy as I was at that
Yeah.
time. So I was like, all right, well, I could kill two birds with one stone. This is something we could do together. That would be cool. You know what I mean? And then you never know. And I was like, his voice is undeniable. So we do that audition. This is February 6th, 2007. So, and we both got picked on day one. And so what happens is we come back for day two. And long story short, I get through it through my audition. I get picked in my first audition and they send you through to this room. Now you don't have your phone or anything. Like they send you through to this room. And when I got to the room, because Devin went before me, he wasn't in there. And I was like, no way. You know what I'm saying? Like because he is. He's such a,
Yeah.
I've literally never seen this guy sound bad ever, you know? Uh, but for whatever reason, he didn't get chosen on day two. And so they had like round after round after round. And I kept making it through the rounds. And so getting picked and getting on the show to kind of sum the show up, that process was from February to August.
From
August was when the finale.
from the first audition to
Yeah, the
completing
finale.
the show. Oh, damn.
Yeah,
And
That's
you can't even
crazy.
you can't even talk about it at that point when you're selected.
I mean, yes and no. Like doing this show, you weren't supposed to be telling people
Mhm.
about things that were going to
Yeah.
happen, but I wasn't like on Facebook, like giving out all the details. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just that particular day, I couldn't communicate with him, so I didn't know what was going on. I'm like trying to get through the rounds, but I was like, yo, the point of me doing this was like to encourage him because I was already kind of doing music like full time
You
and
had
stuff like that.
more, like, established,
Yeah.
like, connection to the
Y-
industry.
Yeah, yeah. At that time, than him. You know what I mean? Like he probably had gotten started with it before me
Mhm.
because he had an older brother that did music out in LA, but out in Cali. But at that time, I was kind of more immersed in it. Um, so being on that show, the show's 9 episodes, right? 44-minute episodes. So there's no way that people saw, you know what I mean, all the different things that we were exposed to. Uh, and mainly that locked in something for me too, because it's like, all right, that time spent at Sony, I also had done some writing in house at Bad Boy Studio. Like I was at the label, but their studio. And I was working consistently with Mario Winans. So Mario Winans was like the newer member of producers that followed what Diddy had that was called the Hitman. So a lot of the songs that we loved from back then in the 90s, like mid 90s or what have you, were coming from a unit of like 10 or so main producers that he had called the Hitman. Whereas me getting in and writing was like at the end of that. So some of them had moved on or what have you. And so this is around like 2001, 2002, maybe, in the time that I'm working with Mario Winans. So we've been exposed to him, who was incredible, also technically from Detroit. Those two sets of opportunities, like working in-house at the studio for Sony with Larry Campbell, and then the experience with Mario Winans just exposed me to another level of what the production stuff is like. Then in 2007, once I do Making a Band, of course, there's a whole nother layer of exposure. There's time working with Brian Michael Cox is an amazing producer, some of that stuff, but also doing all this work with like multiple different elite choreographers, Jamaica Kraft being one of my favorites that we worked with there. Of course, Lorianne Gibson. Um, the different vocal coaches. I mean, with a vocal coach, opera. Being in a house with 19 other guys that are super like talented. It's like the least of the singers there was a guy named Chris Granite who went on to become a dancer for Michael Jackson and a choreographer for Beyonce. Um,
Amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the level of talent that was just in the house. That exposure to like what systems, what um, what different things they had us doing, the different staff that they had involved was like getting artist development university.
Mm, yep.
You know what I mean? Coming through that experience, coming back to Philly, remember, so that's 2007. I had the experience in 2001 or so that made me say, yo, I want to be an A&R and develop acts. But now I have the process of me going through this whole system of artist development and the pressures of that people kind of don't can't even imagine. Um, Showing me like what kinds of systems to put together to do that. I eventually would come home and make my own bands. So I helped assemble the version of the group already existed, but it went through different changes. And so I came along and made a certain change to it that put it in a better position to get a record deal. It was a male group called Imprint. And I had like a better sense of like what combination of people would work that labels would buy into, especially a production company instead of executives that was local to here, called Star Island. So by making adjustments that I made to their group and some artist development stuff that I did, put them in a position to be chosen um, to invest in. And so that contribution I did to that group and kind of plugging them with this production company led to them getting a record deal with Motown. And so then from there, the leverage of that process and one of the people that was around me a lot when I was doing it was a female solo artist at the time. And I was like, based off of her strengths and work ethic, which was really good, her talent, I just thought that if I helped assemble a group around her for what other areas she might need to still work on, they could have a similar result as far as getting a deal and perhaps even go even further. So that's what led to me making a group called Good Girl. And in that process, I actually assembled a production company of my own together to work on putting out music on them and developing them in the Philadelphia market. A solo artist followed that named Bree Steves. And artist development on her, and that process was around like 2015, 2016. Same thing, connecting them to like another company that was beyond me as far as relationships in the like mainstream industry. She got a record deal as well, so that was 3X kind of in a row that I had done some version of artist development on, and they got deals um, at Proof of System. And so now in the current times, some of the other talented producers and songwriters that I had involved or been associated with during the time when I did that run in like 2015, 2016, I would kind of spin the block and circle back with them and create a new company to work on some of the stuff that you've seen that's like in my Instagram that you've seen in the more recent times, whether it was me putting together a pop duo, kind of like a new take on Hall and Notes mixed with a little bit chain smokers because they also became DJs and have you Dom and Jesse.
Love Dom and Jesse over here. We've
Yeah.
had them on. They're great.
Yeah. So that's what came from that. A partner that I had when I was just doing my thing as an artist and some other stuff named Range the Messenger. We partnered around 2018 or so. Uh, and so he had done work with Dom from Dom and Jesse. And I met Jesse myself maybe a couple years after that. And that initial connection to Dom happened with Range. And I was like, yo, I think you guys working together could be special. And so that's how that particular part took off. You know what I mean? And so since then, I've worked with multiple others. Sonny, who's from Jersey, very talented, beautiful solo artist. Currently doing work with an artist out of Memphis named Deja Vu. And another partner in that work heavy has been a producer from Willenboro named Dilemma. A songwriter named Wiz Gang, producer, songwriter, executive. So just like a combination of people. Scott Carter, who's now out in LA, who I did a lot of the work. This one of the central producers I did the work with on Good Girl. Um, production team called Biscuit and Butter helped out during that run of me working on the Good Girl stuff. So it's been a combination of things, but that's all that kind of like led to the artist development and leaning into the A&R side.
That was quite a journey to get to the point where you are now. Uh, what I guess I'm interested in and what you like kind of learned from building the band or making the band, that the insights you pull to install into your system. What is it that you look for, like in artists, that you say, "Oh, this one has it," or
Yeah.
"I need to tweak this about this certain artist to get them there." What is those little nuances that you know of that you could share with us, that artists could like tweak themselves?
So it's funny. I'm very much a systems guy. So for instance, you have an Eagles sweatshirt on right now, right? The Eagles, I'm an Eagles fan too. So they just won the Super Bowl. Great, right? This this year, right? This first game, there's plenty of people who spoke to the fact that okay, the game against the Cowboys, like they didn't have a great game.
Eh,
They got the win, right?
yes, yes.
But one of the things I point out is that okay, you have the same like core guys there, right? And I'm making this analogy just to point to like artists will have various great talents, right?
Mhm.
But the Eagles no longer have the same offensive coordinator. So will they evolve through the season? Sure. Well, when you're like, oh man, it's not looking as good. Well, the talent is still the same, right? For the most part on the team, like like key weapons, offensive weapons, but it's not the same system, right? So, so I say that to say I pay attention to like various different things when it comes to artists because different artists can bring different things to the table. Obviously, you want a work ethic on a certain level to be able to be a sustainably successful artist, right? So I look for work ethic. You want some, especially in this day and age where social media is the medium by which we contextualize artists more. Whereas like 34 years ago, you go on TRL or 106 and Park or whatever, and you're going to see like an artist video, right, to kind of give you the idea of like the world of the artist or what have you. Major labels were more participating in crafting the different assets you need to kind of show off an artist and market an artist. And it was a very simple system of exposing the artist to the world through discovery, which is get them on the radio, get them a video, put it on these platforms. If you like the song, video, what have you, the artist is going to connect a certain way. Then they get big looks like tour, award shows, that kind of stuff. It wasn't that many things, you know what I mean? Like, but it was a monoculture for it. So you could have the masses all see the artist, you know what I'm saying? Relatively quickly if the label picked them. Now, there is no monoculture for that. Like, so there's not one place that everybody is going to watch a pop artist now,
Yeah.
right? R&B artist, whatever. It's not that simple. So the things I look for in the here and now also include how willing is the artist to be vulnerable on social media and like tell their story. So it's either of these two things or a combination of both. It's narrative or spectacle or narrative, you know what I mean? A
Mhm.
combination of both. If you're an artist. Let's take an obvious example of what I mean by spectacle that there's like no narrative for, kind of. Not SZA, sorry. Sia. Sia. It was all spectacle. It was like you didn't even see her face. It's hair. You know what I mean?
The hair, yeah.
It's all a spectacle based thing, right? A lot of K-pop on the surface is like a big spectacle. Beyonce, for a long time, right? There was no narrative per se for Destiny's Child until girls got kicked out the group. Then there's like a story to talk about. But for Beyonce as a solo artist, there wasn't heavy narrative. There was some in the sense that, like, you talked about the fact that she was with Jay-Z and this, that, and the third. But it's like the real narrative, like, really kicked in once the argument in the elevator happened, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so now you get this trilogy that happens after that, like, of albums. You get um, Lemonade, 444, and It's All Love, or whatever that the Carter's album was.
Yeah.
That's a trilogy of like narrative for her. I take that back to in the here and now. Like, well, for artists, is like, is there a story, a narrative that can be shared that's disruptive that people care about, that they're going to be willing to talk about honestly in their music and in like whether it's interviews or what have you, to create a emotional connection between them and an audience. If that's not the case, do they have some incredible spectacle going that can work? And so, like in the case of Dom and Jesse, it wasn't a lean into narrative initially. It's the spectacle of a few different things. I knew that those guys were around the same build, right? But they played guitars in opposite directions.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So on stage, that's an interesting spectacle. How they could play off of each other. They both can sing lead, but they can be entertaining. Like one is it's the buddy movie type of thing
Yeah.
where it's like, one guy is like a little more straight and um interested in cool, you know what I mean? And now that's more quirky. We've seen that spectacle be entertaining and endearing in tons of different movies. You know what I mean? So them doing music that feels good, pop music, but that layer of entertainment between them interacting with each other, playing off of each other, how it looks because of their looks having this continuity, but also contrast, that's spectacle. You know what I mean? Whereas like working on an artist, like let's take SZA. SZA's music has a specific narrative angle to it that's relatable. The sonics of it are unique, but the story narrative speaks to a certain demographic and like core base of women and the creatives. I mean, to people in general, but the connection is based off of the story that's in the music more. And so those are the things I look for. Is like either there's like I said, besides of course having a good talent and a look that's marketable, it's those things. It's like, is there a special narrative that you're gonna just deliver? Or is there like this very distinctive spectacle that we haven't seen that much of that can cut through? And the best in the world can manage to have both.
My question off of that, because that's super interesting and, you don't think about it, at least me personally, I wouldn't think about that on a day-to-day basis, but that's completely valid. It's either, like, a compelling story that really drives me to, like, wanna listen to an artist and engage with them, or it is that just, like, spectacle. I used to love Lady Gaga, and I mean, I still think she's just, like, insanely talented, but I think
Spectacle
Yeah.
artist.
Yeah.
what she did with, coming out with, like, the meat dress, like, some of
Yeah,
those fashion moments and how much that plays
spectacle.
into the artistry, absolutely valid, so, I mean, I think that's an incredible point. The question I have off of that is, do you think that these are things that are kind of innate in the artists? Obviously, you want the talent from them and
Mhm.
see a talented artist, but do you think that they're innate things that these people possess, or is it just something that could be taught too?
So one of the main things I would also say that I spend time on deciphering when choosing artists, are they willing to reverse engineer success?
Mm,
Because by the time the world catches up to an act, right, they're seeing the result of the path that that artist took, right? It's like they cut through, they have a breakthrough, and then you're kind of watching the movie from there, right? But artists, they're like superheroes, right? But when we go see a superhero movie, right, like there's been a ton of that since like Marvel and, now this rebirth of like DC or what have you.
mm,
When we go see those movies, they show you the origin story first, typically, right? Okay, well, the tricky thing for creators when I meet them is most of them don't really know the origin stories of the artists that they're trying to emulate, right? And there was this podcast interview, Jay-Z on the Rap Radar podcast, and he was speaking to the fact that artists, emerging artists who are kind of out there yet, they tend to emulate someone else, their hero's results instead of the process. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh man, you see what your hero in music can do, but unless you deep dive how that happened, you would make the assumption that these people just are,
mhm,
right? Like it's just innate, right? It's like I was sharing that with a set of artists that I like help encourage and kind of mentor now. We see Steph Curry as the best shooter ever, right? And there is some degree of that that's innate. I have a buddy of mine who like emphasizes how much like his mind is just their genetics. And I'm like, genetics is a huge part of it. But when you actually spend the time to reverse engineer people in success, you see what other work was done on top of that. So I think there is an aspect of it that is innate, but in order to reach the potential that we see of the people we see, there's a multiplier, which is their what they learn to do. Because, like for instance, in the case of Steph Curry, he's the best shooter the NBA has ever seen. But when you reverse engineer him, you learn that he was shooting a way that wouldn't work in the NBA first. And then once his father, parents took what he wanted to do seriously, he had to change. So it's like a person. So to go back to spectacle, when you reverse engineers, these people who are the best at spectacle, yeah, they were like standout personalities per se when they were younger. But like in the case of Lady Gaga, she had a record deal and got dropped. The version of her we see now wasn't until after she got dropped and then kind of ended up connecting with another artist who was performing in New York, like in Manhattan, and these performances that are kind of the precursor to the version of Lady Gaga we see now. Like another artist was doing that and she was doing it with that person. And then she kind of took it and went to the next level. My point is that if she didn't have the innate ability and kind of like DNA of what she was, there wouldn't be something to multiply. But
right.
there still is a thing that like needs to be added. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think it's the nature and nurture conversation. It's like at the end of the day, Steph Curry genetics make him 6'3", you know,
That's true.
right? His father is an was an elite shooter in the NBA, but he still learned to do something that his father didn't do, and he chose to be willing to do that. You know what I mean? So I think it's always a combination of both. Michael Jordan is the most incredibly, the goat of basketball in many people's eyes, right? And he was a leading scorer for years um, in the league, but he didn't win championships until his team adopted the triangle offense. So I think it's a combination of both for the best. You know what I mean? For the like goats of it. I think if you have a certain amount of like raw ability and kind of go for it, especially in these times, because everybody can kind of put out music. You don't You don't need a record label to get your music into Tower Records. Everybody can get their music on iTunes, relatively speaking. That if you're just raw and not and kind of just self-taught and like don't get a certain kind of training, you can still make a dent today because you can have a viral moment. But I think a sustainable career takes innate ability times the multiplier of like good mentorship and systems.
That's interesting. So, with that in mind, um, like keen on like that viral moment artists could have now, technically not needing a record label.
Hmm.
Where do you see the industry in the next, like, let's say 5 to 10 years, where an emerging artist doesn't need a songwriter label? They could be their one solo like company itself, do the marketing,
Hmm.
write their songs, promote it, um, distribute themselves, and then collect the royalties for the music. Do you think
Yeah.
that's like the future of the music industry? Uh,
Here's what I think is very interesting about that. It's like the fact that more people can do the work on their own is the same things that make you laugh, make you cry. Because I think, and this is so interesting to me because I deal with watching it and the thought processes behind it every day. Is right. So it's like now you see that it's attainable to like do the things yourself, right? But I dare to say the most disciplined people in it wouldn't do it just by themselves because they understand that it's like to be elite, when you reverse engineer success, you see that like everybody has blind spots. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, you can do it all yourself, but should you do it all yourself? You know what I'm saying? Like systems win for sustainability. So I did this thing on a chat GPT, right? To kind of show this thing. Cause I never like people that have to just take like my word for it. If I'm shit, I wasn't raised like that. Like my dad never said, cause I said so, right? If I'm telling it to you, it's just to kind of put it on your radar, but I actually want you to like deep dive it for yourself. I'm not trying to like, I'm not out here to be like, kiss the ring. Like you know, I'm the only answer. I don't believe, I don't think like that.
Yeah.
It's just most people won't spend the time to deep dive it for themselves. So it's like, I'm telling you a thing and I'm the only source you're hearing it from because you won't look for yourself. You know what I mean? The ones who do grow the most. This is what I'm getting back to. ChatGPT, if you go, if you're going your ChatGPT and say, for scaling a business, which is the most important thing? Independence, dependence, or interdependence? It's going to give you an answer. Answer didn't come from me. It's going to tell you, right? Now, I believe, like it said, I didn't make it up, right? You need interdependence, you know what I'm saying, to make that work. Now, you may bring a lot to the table. In one aspect of the thing, you might be 95% of the answer, right? But then there's still this other 5%, you know what I mean, that makes a difference. Y'all are both intelligent people, young people interested in this stuff. I could just be talking to one of you, right? But iron sharpens iron. You,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so I do encourage the artists I work with to learn as much as possible to be able to be very self-sufficient in ways. But that's only so that their interactions with other people in these areas are better. You know what I mean? If I understand all the different areas I'm about to go into as a solo artist or as an artist, independent artist, when I interact with other people that are masterful in a specific area, the bridge between me and them is stronger. We can communicate better. You know what I mean? And iron can sharpen iron. It's not wood sharpens iron. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I encourage you to be as self-sufficient as possible, but only because that will lend itself better to the process of collaboration with others. You know what I mean? So it's like when you dissect hits, the majority of hit records are not written by one person. They're not produced by one person. You know what I'm saying? There's somebody else that mixes it. You know, it doesn't mean you can't do things alone to kind of get it started. But in the long run, for it to be sustainable, you need great systems, and that involves other people.
That reminds me kind of, like you said, iron sharpens iron, and also it takes a village. I think
Yes.
that, even in, like, the overarching world we live in right now, I don't know if it's the social media effect or, what it is, but I feel like
Oh, it's a big part of it.
I see so many people that it feels like it's just hyper independence. Like, I get wanting to do things for yourself, and I think that's noble and makes
Yeah.
sense, but I think that there's a point where people are like, "Oh, it has to be just, like, me grinding on my own." And
Because they
I
see
don't
the
think it's
highlight
healthy.
reels.
Yeah.
It's because they see the highlight reels of like people's result. You know what I mean? Like, so just like this, just take this, right? If someone just saw this interview, this part happening right now,
Mm.
they wouldn't see Julia.
Right. Yeah, that's the
That
truth.
didn't mean Julia wasn't part of the process.
Absolutely.
See what I'm saying? So it's like people are watching a result and then they try to emulate that thing. It's not like y'all are leaving her out. She did her particular role before people see this aspect.
Right.
So then they try to make a replica of this and don't put that piece into it because they didn't know it was there.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
even when they go to make these scissors, it's kind of like me talking about Michael Jordan, right? And the Bulls winning 6 championships. The intermediate watcher might be familiar with Phil Jackson, right? Being a coach. And so they're like, oh, I wanted Phil Jackson. But the offense they was running didn't come from him. It came from Tex Winter. So you need Tex Winter and Phil. But if you don't deep dive their system, you don't know that the Tex Winter role was even a thing.
I didn't
You know
know
what I'm saying? Right. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I
And
would
Usman's the one who's gonna know. I would not ever.
yeah, I don't even know who
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is. I don't even know who that is. I'll be
Right. Right.
honest.
That's the problem because it doesn't make you unintelligent to
Yeah,
not know. You
yeah,
see what I'm saying? So what happens is like we're intelligent and talented, and like I think I got it. And it's like this is the analogy I give for the thing. It's like if I show you a piece of paper, right, and it says 2 + 2 = 4, right? I mean, not equals 4, 2 + 2. And you're like, I'm intelligent. I know that equals 4, right? Think about it like this. Sorry for you to say. All right, this thing has air tag on it, right? I- If if all you see is the air, you're intelligent. You're like, that's his air. And I'm like, oh no, there was more to it than that. If you didn't notice that there was more to it than that, your intelligence added up what you saw.
Right. Yep.
And you're right about what you saw. You know what I'm saying? It's like you knew who Phil Jackson was,
yeah,
but you didn't know that Tex Winter was part of it. That is not knowing Tex Winter was part of it has nothing to do with intelligence. So it's like these creators, if they're not willing to do the deep dive, will try to recreate the success, right? It's just like trying to make another Eagles team and not including the Kellen Moore aspect
yep,
of that system. And that's what happens. Is like because we now see each other's highlight reel of things, we do the math of what we can see and say that will be enough to reproduce this result. And it's like, no, that's not
Totally.
all the numbers that were in that equation. You know what I mean? So your math isn't bad. You're just missing numbers that were part of the thing. So me trying to get creators I work with and even like producers and people to the left and right of me to like reverse engineer how and why people were successful instead of just the what of it is the tricky part. And not everybody like it's not like the people are hiding the information, but if you don't deep dive them, you don't know. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, oh man, this person is amazing. It's like, yeah, they are amazing, but they also had this other component that happened, that you might need to emulate too if you want to produce a similar result.
Yeah. Very much like things being deeper than just what the eyes can see, because now I'm even thinking about it from the perspective of like, okay, you go see like, Beyonce, you see one, solo act who like
Yeah.
has background dancers, has, a full production behind them, and maybe you're not seeing the people that are working the lights or, that
Of
are the
course.
stage hands and doing all those pieces. And
Yeah.
it's like when, somebody wins a Grammy, they go up there, they thank their team. They thank a whole slew of people that are behind them that, like,
Yeah.
maybe they're not singing the song on stage with them at the end of the day, but they're still an integral part of
Yeah.
what it is.
And we know the idea of team, but without these dives, like you don't know what decisions led to the macro result.
Mhm.
And it's like what happens to me is like I'll meet artists that have a lot of potential, and I use the same analogy over and over again. I say it's like if it's $10 to get into the club, right? The different artists will have a different version of $7 that they bring to the table. The other 3 they have to get usually lives inside of a place that's outside of their comfort zone, but it's a different $3 for different people. So it's like when they look at the people that they like look at and they like, they don't process a lot of times of what it took to get the other $3 that they weren't comfortable with. Right? It's like we see Beyonce now and she's an incredible performer. But I remember I was talking about like spectacle or narrative. We see her, we process her as a solo artist now. But she spent a ton of time in a group. Before it was good before sorry, not girl. Before it was Destiny's Child, it was girls' time. So she gave up a long period of like her childhood from 1990 to 1998 just to get to a breakthrough of Destiny's Child. So she was in a group for 8 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh man, I want to be like Beyonce. Okay, well you can't go back in time and be in a group for 8 years committed to in order to make that work. That's just to get to the first album. The first album wasn't a huge success.
Right.
It did okay. The next album is like really what cut through. And Say My Name was the biggest single off of that. Say My Name is the single where they had to swap out girls. You know what I mean? It's like, would you have stayed in a process like that or would you have quit? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's to me is like what makes it the toughest thing. When you have, say you go to school for journalism, there's a path set out, a syllabus set out to get you from point A to point B of the degree. This, there's no set syllabus, right? So it takes the time. Like, well, let me say this: if I want to become an architect, it's 12 years. 12 years, right? You got undergrad, graduate school, and then like your apprenticeships and what have you. And once upon a time, I was in the process of like architecture drafting. So the one reason why I know, right? So that process, it's about to take you 12 years. And there's like when you go to school, they give you the next assignment and the next assignment, next assignment. The problem is with this, you don't know the next assignment. So you tend to just do what things you're comfortable with working on. If you're not in a system that's like, we need to work on this next or work on that next, then you don't stick, you don't progress a certain way. Even once you do get like in the vicinity of someone like myself, who is going to push for the next thing, you have certain ideas in your mind about what you want to do or don't want to do. So whatever it is you don't want to do is usually sits inside of the area is not your comfort zone. So it's like it's hard to convince you to do it if you're not willing to like reverse engineer how other people got to it. And so that's what makes the thing difficult. All that to lead back to the idea of as a solo person, the idea of doing it all yourself, you're going to tend to do only the aspects of it that are comfortable to you. It will literally be like deciding to go to college, right? And thinking you're going to get a degree. And the only thing you learn in class is what you ask.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? Think of that. Like if
Crazy.
school worked where, like my son, I have a young son, right? He just started high school. Imagine if high school was only based off of the questions he asked, right? Laughable idea.
Yeah.
But that's how we like creatives tend to like want to do the thing. It's like only the questions they ask. Whereas like if you're getting mentored, a mentor is going to present ideas to you that you didn't think of. When you're partnering with people, both of you have asked questions. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah.
Each one of you thought of perspectives. You know what I'm saying? That thing. That idea of iron sharpens iron, I didn't make that up. It's a scripture in the Bible. It's Proverbs 27:17. I didn't make up that idea. You know what I'm saying? So the choice to surround yourself with a community, you know what I'm saying? And that's like what I encourage. Like you got to make your own version of the Avengers, and you know what I'm saying? X-Men, and like learn from each other and like and grow through that process. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable a certain way is what produces the result. So, do I tell an artist there's no way for them to do it all themselves? No. But it's like the tricky part is you usually don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like an echo chamber, right? Like, if you're just
Yes.
kinda, like, feeding yourself, like, we all you made a really interesting
Yes.
post the other day, Deshaun, that was,
Yeah.
like, speaking about perception.
Yes.
And I think about that kind of stuff all the time. Like, I'm big into that. I feel like it's, is it what you see or is it how you're perceiving it? Is it what's actually
Yeah.
happening or the perception behind it? And, different people, everybody's lives are informed by their own personal experiences and,
Yep.
thoughts and stuff. If you don't open yourself up to, like, you have a background in this, you've been doing this for a while and built a
Yeah.
very successful career,
Mhm.
somebody could come out and say, "I have the talent and I have the drive," but, like, they don't know where to go with it.
Yeah.
I think that if you don't, like, at least open yourself up to other perspective, you're kinda just stuck in the fear spot, and you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just stuck.
It's tough. And even that idea, right? Okay, I do have a lot of experience in being exposed to a lot of different things. But when I'm working artists, I'm like very adamant about the idea that like it's not me. It's like I literally like share with you, I got it from somewhere else. It's
Yeah.
not, I didn't, I'm not sitting there like, yo, praise me. It's like, it's all my ideas.
Yeah.
No, it's just, it's just like Wikipedia. Like if you go to Wikipedia,
Right.
no, the Wikipedia, it's input from like other places. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Mhm.
I'm funneling it to you, but I'm like, literally, you can look at it for yourself. I'm encouraging you to hear from yourself. And that outlier comes from the background of like the religious background I come from. You don't have to agree with the doctrines, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But that system I came from is very much like open your Bible and read it for yourself. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
And pull your
You
own
know?
perspective from it and make your decisions. I
Yeah.
I feel like that's,
Yeah.
like, the beautiful thing about knowledge. It's
Mhm.
Yeah.
like it's a shared thing, right? Like,
Yes.
nobody owns the knowledge, but, like, you might have had a different experience and you can shed light on something in a new way that,
Yeah.
like, maybe that other person would have had, like, never thought of that way.
Yeah. And we don't have to agree. But I
Mhm.
love it's like anytime constantly surround myself with intelligent people and I'm like, no, man, tell me.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this? Like, show me where you got it from. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, everything I know now, I got it from somewhere. So I didn't just like self-generate the knowledge. Now, the thing that may be unique to me is how I like gumbo it together.
Mhm.
Uh, perspective I can gain, but that's the word. It's like I'm using things to gain perspective on these ideas. It's not just living inside of my perception, because my perception could come from just my path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But perspective is like the ability to look at it from another angle and integrate that into it. And that's to me the most important thing about working inside of teams and like and learning what things other people know. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, all right, I do a lot of work with female artists. I'm not a woman. You know what I'm saying?
For
So
sure.
it's like I'm not gonna think I got all the answers. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna be like, you know, you I'm gonna listen enough to kind of understand, like, well, how you seeing it, how these things affect, affect you, blah blah blah. I can give insight on things that they haven't necessarily had to do a lot of, to see how that can be integrated into what they bring to the table. You know what I mean? Um, and so even this, either one of you guys play sports in like middle school or high school?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right. So watch this, right? This is a, this has nothing to do with intelligence. This is just how playing sports changes our perspective. All right. Did you play basketball at all?
I played basketball for 1 year in middle school.
All right, bet. So did you play like in the neighborhood or
Yeah,
like in
yeah,
gym class?
yeah, yeah.
All right. So do you know the idea of like going to the court and be like, I got next?
Yep.
All right, bet. So this is what I show when it comes to like like team building, that it's tough to do if you didn't play sports. You don't learn this lesson as fast. When I come to the court and say I got next, right? If I came alone in basketball, typically we're doing that. There's a two teams playing already on the court. So now I need to build a team. There's might be other people who come to the court too who want to play too. They're just watching. And then there's the two teams that are on the court. When those teams finish and one team loses, the team that loses has to get off the court. The team that won is still there. So how am I picking my team? Because I'm about to go on next. If I came to the court by myself, right? There's the team that just came off, and there's guys standing around. How do I pick my team? It's a real
So
question.
yeah,
Who's
so
someone? You go for
nah,
it.
so for me, usually it's, alright, I know what position that I'm gonna play on the court, right?
Self-awareness. So idea of what you do, right?
Yeah,
You got to try
and
to be as honest about that as possible,
exactly.
right?
And then, alright, usually I'm watching the game, seeing who's actually running up and down the court,
So
and
you got to observe the people around you. They're not your friends.
yeah,
They're
they're not my
just people
friends,
that
but,
are
like,
there.
yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta make sure, like, alright, I'm gonna put something together, I gotta make sure that it works because I know how the team that won the game
yeah,
operates.
right.
So, I know they have a cohesive unit.
Yep,
Knowing that, I'm gonna build a team that go against them, right?
yeah,
So, knowing what I could do and then assessing what the other 5 guys who lost can do
yeah,
themselves, I'm gonna build a team around that, and then hopefully that's good enough to beat the team.
right. Now that wasn't a corporate entity. That was
Yeah,
just literally an assessment you have to do just to get on the court.
yeah,
And you do it a lot
Mhm.
as a kid because the goal is not losing.
yeah.
Right.
It's not your friends. Your friends might be amongst the people,
Mhm,
but you're doing an assessment. You got to assess yourself and the
Mhm.
skill set of others to form a team to win.
mhm,
And you start making that assessment better and better when you don't like losing.
Mm.
So a goal, a very like finite goal that happens makes you improve that process because there is a like actual vertical for whether or not you made a good decision or not. If you lost and you're like, I didn't pick well enough, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or I didn't assess myself well enough. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that actual tangible goal makes that process improve. You did here's where it gets even more interesting. In a social group, you might pick people that are just like you or as close to being like you as possible because that's interesting. You have a certain type of chemistry. But when you're building teams, you need five different guys. You need different people. It's like, yo, if you're a fast point guard who can shoot on the outside, you're not going to get that many rebounds. So you need a big guy,
mhm.
you know what I'm saying, who's not as adept at running around court like you. He's doing something completely different from you. But when you pick in like a social group, you might not do that. You know, it's like birds of a feather flock together
Yep.
energy, right? Right? If you go to, let's be honest, you go to a club, right? Let's say you see women together, club, right? It will be kind of similar.
Yeah,
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't feel like ops. You feel like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, similar vibes, same type of dress. You know what I'm saying? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, you see the difference in the energy?
Yeah.
So it's like, whereas in sports, to exaggerate it more, because football is a bigger exaggeration of this,
Mm,
that wide receiver is nothing like that offensive lineman. Way they think, way they look, like exercises they do to be better at their thing is very different. So different, very different mindsets, but you need those components to like work together in order to win. A lot of times the artists working with have never had to make that choice. I'm being honest, I'm being transparent. Like on the female side, they may be extremely talented, like extremely intelligent, but the idea of like having to form systems amongst each other that are complementary that way doesn't happen a lot. And
interesting.
so I'm having to come along and say, you would get further if you chose an assembly of other women around you that function just like that basketball team, do different things to help each other win. And that happens in the real world, but it's really tough for me as a developer, helping, especially helping a female artist. Because what happens is that process you talked about that you had to do at the court, you had to proactively choose those people. In this world, a lot of times the female artists are choosing from the people who choose them. So it's like if you're talented, there's some guy coming up to you, guy coming up to you, saying, "Oh, you're dope," and blah 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 blah. Maybe they're genuine. More times than not, it's like not. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? It's like nefarious and like unfortunately um predatory, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
energy. And so what I do is in order for the female artist to progress, I'm like, yo, I'm about to lead to something that's like super truth. Like when I meet them, I'll ask, I'm like, name me 5 female studios you've been to. And
Can't answer.
it's never happened. Now, that's not because the female artists are any less talented or any less intelligent, not even close. You know what I'm saying? That's like not the thing at all. But the guys are doing the basketball thing on the studio side. It's like,
Mm,
oh, I got the mic. You know what I'm saying? He got the speakers. You know what I'm saying? Like he's good at making beats. I'm a rapper. Like they assemble those teams. That doesn't mean all the teams are winners, but I'm just saying they're doing that thing all the time. You know what I mean? So it's like women to do that, they're being chosen by those guys, and then it gets weird. So I'm always like encouraging them, look what the guys did, how they had to pick that team. Find a girl who's good at this part and you're good at that part. Don't treat them like an op. Treat them like a complimentary player. I'll be referee for a while to show you how it's done. But if you form that, then you can progress better. Instead of seeing yourself like the extremes of either I've joined this team, like guys, but there's weird stuff going on with that. Or they'll go from that to I'm just gonna do it all myself. I went through that whole thing to just explain why I've run into so many on the female side that are really talented that are like, oh, I want to do it all myself. And it's like that's a reaction to like having a bad run in 2 or 3
yeah,
times.
for sure.
But if you actually learn the process of how to make your own team a certain way and build a certain way, then you get into a safer space of like of deciphering, of choosing. If we're not good, if a guy's not good, he don't get picked for that team. It's the same thing in music. If I can't deliver in that studio, I don't get invited back.
Right.
You can't get in. If they don't like what you can do, you can't get in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas if you go to them studios and it's an attractive woman, they will let them in. They might actually have more potential than anybody else in the studio. But they're not gonna get the same feedback that makes them have to adjust. And so that slows the process down. And so all I do is try to come in and make the process the same. Yeah, and be like, yo, I actually believe you can be great. So in order for you to be great, you're about to be uncomfortable because you don't experience this other places. I'm about to tell you, no, you got to get with these two other girls and have iron sharpen iron and stop seeing them as somebody as an op, but as a complementary player. Now you have that nucleus of each other to like build off of. And now when you go into these rooms, these other situations together,
Mhm.
you have a shield and a community that people have to respect as opposed to, you know, this like predatory, like take advantage of you or leverage you, you know what I'm saying? In a
Yeah.
certain way.
Yeah.
And that's what I like build a lot that creates a result that people don't necessarily see me do.
Mhm. I feel like there can be so much competitive nature
Yeah,
in the
that's what I
industry
was
as a
thinking.
whole,
Yeah.
and, like, speaking as a woman, like
Yeah.
and I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have seen it. You've seen it in your work, Deshaun, like Us, I'm
Yeah.
sure you've seen it in just living life, like, there are like, there is such a competitiveness to women,
Yeah.
certain things. Not everyone, obviously, it's case by case, but, like,
Right. Right.
I even think from, the music perspective of how many girl groups started and people love them, right? And it looked like,
Yeah.
again, from the outside, you're consuming their music, you're loving what they're putting out, and then it's like, "Oh, there was some fight between them and it's crashing and burning now." I
Yeah.
personally think that there's so much more to, like, potential in saying, "We can all win." Like, there is
Yes.
room for everybody at this table.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not good at every single thing. If I have these skills and these tasks, like, I want somebody that has a completely different background to me that's gonna have different perspectives and know
Yes.
different things,
Yes.
because otherwise it goes back
It's
to
the
that echo
only
chamber.
it's lit yes, it's literally the only way to win, and unfortunately now, because of how the algorithm works, the echo chambers thing is, like, on steroids.
That's
It's on
true.
steroids,
Just gives
and
you
c
more of what you've already been looking at, right?
yeah, it's gonna yeah, affirm whatever idea you already have. That's why I love, like, so in the thread, I have a thread called Phoenix that's it's just all female artists, like, talents in it. I just play referee. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
to show that thing. Like this is possible, man. Like y'all are all really good at different things. This is a safe space. You can literally make each other better and incubate here. And then you're still gonna have to face these rooms full of guys and this, that, and the third. Y'all are just as talented and just as intelligent. But I'm saying the incubation process is safer in this space. You know what I mean? And so it was awesome. Um, once the process for making Cat's Eye, they showed some of that, just like me being in Making the Band. The on Netflix, Pop Star Academy. It's like that process was already happening in K-pop, right? For a long time. Hype, which is a major K-pop company, came over here, joined forces with Geffen Records, and made Cat's Eye. They show that process, but it was over a 2-year period, right? So the show was only a few episodes, just like Making the Band, but it was a 2-year process for those women. That group of really talented, intelligent women that's in that thread, most of them watch the show. Well, we were to talk about that and say, it's like, all right, now you see this act coming out. Now you see the results. They already up to 20 million monthly listeners and what have you. But they had to go through this process that was very uncomfortable and learn from each other and grow until they shaped that group that now has 6 members. The key thing is that in the process of making it a group, none of them would have made the group that the system made. Now they might now, you know what I'm saying? But it's like I recently asked, and this is the thing, that's what I mean, that's not attached to intelligence. It's literally just like, what do you get used to? Like, what's your perspective? Right. So I asked, because this is like months and months later, right? I was like, yo, who's the leader of that group? And nobody could name the girl. Now, it's not that they didn't see the girl when we watched it. You know what I'm saying? Now, I was the person who had to name who it was. But the reason why I did that is because what you would choose is the issue. Because, which, like, what are you like innately in your mind looking for to assemble? instead of understanding, like, for instance, in this is an old group now, no offense to them, right? But one of the biggest groups ever, uh, in R&B and pop music is Boyz II Men. All right. Okay, so both of you shook your head, so you know who Boyz II Men is. All right, right. Okay, that group's heyday is years ago now. But just out of curiosity, can either one of you name somebody from that group?
I
By
can't.
name? No.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Because I wouldn't expect you to, because it's just their heyday is a long time ago. The What I'm about to get to is that the lead singer is not the same thing as the leader.
Mm.
That happened to be the same person in Destiny's Child. That's not how it usually goes. Usually the star player is maybe the lead player, but that doesn't leading scorer, but it's not the leader. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at let's take the Temptations, right? Only because it's like there's a joke associated with them because of the movie about them. They're like, ain't nobody come to see you, Otis. You know what I'm saying? Oh, Otis was the leader. You know what I'm saying? David Ruffin was the lead singer before they had a 1-2 punch. So they had Eddie Kendricks and David Ruffin. David Ruffin has the rough, powerful voice, and Eddie had the like smooth falsetto, right? That's the contrast. But the quarterback of the group was Otis. New addition, the quarterback, Michael Bivins, not the lead singer. You know what I'm saying? So that thing happens um in Cat's Eye. The leader is a chick named Sophia. She's not the best dancer. The best dancer is, I think, this girl's named like Megan or something like that. And it's like the star personality is Manon. You know what I mean? It's like the best singer is probably this girl named Laura, who's like of Indian descent, like India, you know? So it's like I say that to say when assembling a unit, people don't think of like, oh, who is the leader? You know what I mean? They think of like leading scorer to choose. You know, it will assemble a team off of those things. The last thing I reference in reference to that is there's a clip you can find on YouTube, the CIA agent speaking to how CIA teams are put together.
Mm.
And it says there's 4 archetypes that go in every CIA team, and they name them off their animals. There's a lion, a cheetah, a bear, and a fox. The lion is the leading archetype for organization. Their role, their key role, because people can have overlapping abilities, but
Mhm.
their key responsibility is to organize it. You know, the people person connector is the bear. The doer is like, yo, what we doing? Just give me the assignment, I'm out, is the cheetah. And then the visionary is the fox. They say every team has to have those 4 components on. Where I'm going is that sometimes the strengths that people have make them diametrically opposed to a different role. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Right? So an organizer is going to kind of slow it down, right? To keep things in order. It's diametrically opposed to the doer who's like, yo, why are we taking so long? Let's just
Yeah.
get to it. You know what I'm saying? Right? The person with the vision may seem in their head all the time. You know what I'm saying? And look, because they're looking 100 feet ahead of what's going on. It may feel less social than the bear. You know what I mean? Who's more in the moment. So I say that to say those things when you're just moving socially can make you like not connect to those people. You know what I mean? When it's like teams, you need complementary things. So it's like the very thing that makes you great at this particular aspect may come from a different personality type, a different cultural background, a different, you know what I'm saying? A different perspective is why you mastered the part that you mastered. And if you learn how to see how that helps you, then you treat those people different when you meet them. I
And
know I talked your head off, but hopefully that
no,
made sense.
that was
No,
yeah,
that
yeah, it
all
made a lot
such
of
good
sense.
information. Like,
Yeah.
So,
The interesting part, for me was, like, I was sitting here listening to everything, like,
mhm,
the different archetypes, the perspective and everything, and that was, like, literally me, in those situations, like, I put myself in those shoes where I like to do everything, like, myself, like, I can control it, but then I think over time, like, even, like, doing this, I
mhm.
realized, like, "Oh, I need help." Like, I need to
Yeah, we
actually
all
go to
do.
Julia for help.
Yeah,
Um, Even, like, test ideas or ask questions with people, like, at work or, like, college friends about this.
yeah,
Like, how do we grow it? How do we scale it? Perspective, because I'm thinking like, "Oh, I'm doing great. This is awesome." But they could, like, see something that's maybe flawed a little bit that I could adjust, that I may not
yeah,
be noticing, and that could help improve what we're doing right now. So,
yeah,
I think it takes some time, to, like, be uncomfortable, like, to
yeah,
ask for help.
yeah,
I don't think people usually wanna ask for help.
right.
Uh,
It's a
hard.
lot of vulnerability in that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah,
I think it took some time to like, "Oh, yeah, it's okay to ask people for help." And you'd be shocked that they are willing to help. Like,
yeah,
people love helping other people, do good things. So, if
yeah,
you ask, it's like, oh, yeah, they'll give you advice. If you need advice, they'll lend a hand if they are free to do so. Um, I think it's willing to just ask and say, "Yeah, I need help." Um
yeah. And I show 'em there's a book by, Russell Simmons called Do You,
Mm,
and it's about success, right? And each chapter is about a different aspect of success that's important to master. But the book is not chronological. Like I said, each chapter is just something different. So I'll tell the artist when I first meet them, read chapters 4, 6, and 9. Because I'm like, if you don't take these chapters seriously or master these, it's not even gonna matter. The rest of the book's not gonna matter. The book itself tells you chapter 6, if you don't get chapter 6 right, it's a wrap. So chapter 4 is like basically stop fronting and start today. Like get to it. Right. Stop procrastinating. Chapter 6 is about surrounding yourself with better people, which speaks to what
Mhm.
we're talking about now.
Yep.
And then this is why I'm getting to this. Chapter 9 is about creating value for value. Because you can know you need to like have a team or need help, but then how you manage the relationships with those other people has to do with value for value. It's like I come into a room and I'm like, well, how can I make this room better? You know what I mean? Like, what can I do to help you? You know what I mean? Which is causes leverage, right? And I mean it in a positive way, even though a lot of business people can just be leveraging on some bully type time. But there's a also a article I read was like the 20 habits of billionaires, basically. So this guy worked for two different billionaires and he gave the advice he learned, key points, right? In the first 10, in the first 10, at least three of them have to do with how you interact and like combine forces with other people. And so that's why earlier when I talked about independence, dependence, interdependence, it's like for scaling, interdependence is the most important aspect necessary. I will never tell anyone not to become um, independent. Yes, learn as much as I spoke about earlier. Learn as much as possible yourself. Like get as self sufficient as you can. But to be great, you are always going to have to build with other people. I just think you build with other people better the more you understand the things you're trying to get them to do.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If I'm trying to work with a cameraman, right, to do something like this or what have you, it's like, oh, it helps if I understand something about cameras, so
Yeah.
that my conversation with them isn't like I'm not, you know what I mean? Like I'm not asking them for things that don't make sense.
Right.
You're gonna respect my conversation and my request the more if you feel like I understand what you're about to do for me. You understand I'm not gonna be unreasonable, even if I'm pushing the envelope. You won't feel like I'm talking to you asking for something that's like, yo, he don't even know what he's talking about. He don't know how hard it is to do this. I'm gonna, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna deliver that message and we'll have a better strategy for how you can possibly implement that thing. if you've done it. If you're asking someone to come on and co-host and ask questions, if they say, "Oh, you've done it yourself before," blah blah blah, you're not going to be unreasonable. You know what I mean? When you're saying, "Yo, I need you to take on that aspect," they'll feel like, even if it's tough, they'll feel like you understand them. You understand what they're
Yeah.
up against.
I've always, like, been a proponent just in my personal life and professional life. Everybody has something different to teach
Yes.
about something, and I
Yeah.
don't think that we were ever meant as human beings to be solo, you know? Like,
Absolutely.
we're meant to have community, we're meant to have people in our corner,
Yeah.
and I think to your earlier point, having those people that are the different archetypes in your corner for
Yeah.
different things that you can bring something different to their table and they can do the same for you is
Yeah.
such a huge thing. And people don't always recognize it because, like you said, maybe, it is a different personality type that you
Yeah.
think, just judging right off the bat, maybe I'm not going to mesh with this person. And it's
Right.
like you sit and actually talk to them and you're like, this person's super cool, super
Yeah.
intelligent, has something to share. Like, if we kept those conversations going and people leaned into that learning more,
And
be in a better spot, you know?
yeah.
There's so much learning out there.
I think what makes it so tough is that on the surface, we might not be wrong about the idea of what could make them not jive with us, right?
Yeah.
But to me, that's a point of focus thing. Like, if I focus on, because just like when assembling those teams, those people are different. If I focus on how different we are in a way that's not about how complementary it is, then I would be right. Like, you can, through your perspective, make a self-fulfilling prophecy about why you wouldn't get along. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what are you making the priority of the thing? You know what I mean? Like, okay, your hair is dyed, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Right? Okay, nothing about what I look like says I know how to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Right? If you made your focus on whether I was valuable to you or not, a discussion of whether or not I could help you dye your hair,
Right. Yeah. No.
okay, this ends an hour and 30 minutes ago. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, what are you choosing to connect with people about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that, you're reminding me of it's like a saying of don't judge a fish by, like, its
Yes,
ability to, like, climb a
right.
tree or something.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
not its
That's
thing, like
right. That's the trick. It's like, what is the point of we and if people aren't necessarily doing it just for a terrible reason, like a malicious reason, it starts to become a habit. Like, we all have primal systems, right, for fight or flight. Right? At one time, you needed to assess threat very quickly in order to stay alive. So we still have those systems. We see people, just even though we're not in the same level of danger most times, you know what I'm saying? The system still exists. Like, the innate design is still there. So you see somebody and your mind has assessed, you know what I'm saying, fight or flight, like, is this person a danger to me? You know what I mean? It's just that we still function in that primally for things that's not even that deep.
For
You know
sure.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So like, we're not taught that that's happening. We're not aware of that. We're not aware of what the hippocampus is about to do and the amygdala is going to do. We're just but the brain is constantly assessing threats, right? So, for instance, you have the Eagles thing on. If I led with the fact that today I just finished a documentary on the Cowboys, right? I just happened to already tell you that I'm an Eagles fan,
Yeah.
hey,
right? So if I started the conversation with, well, when I was talking about teams, I could have referenced that. I didn't. If I referenced it first, you're like, oh, you a Cowboys fan? You see what I'm saying? Right? I was like, no, actually, I'm not. not at all. Like,
That would have been my immediate reaction too.
see what I'm
'Cause
saying?
I was
Like,
like, "Why are you watching
and
this?"
it's not malicious. It's just
Yeah,
like the brain's
Yeah.
programmed for that thing.
First thing you go
I
for,
happen
yeah.
to know that that would happen, so I didn't. But now me talking about it, oh nah. I just like to study how do systems work. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yep,
how did it get great? They had a great run. How did it happen? What can I take from that to use? It has nothing to do with being a fan of the Cowboys. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know what I mean? But I want to know, just like to pick your team, you had to watch other teams and say, what was the strength of the team that won? And what would it take to beat them? I'm willing to reverse engineer success in everything I come across. Like, what things overlapped that made that? That's what these artists that are successful, they have systems that, and they're part of, that have done. But it's hard to get creatives to function in that space because there's not as much of a dopamine release studying systems. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So when you're able to show them that, yes, we're here to be creative. I have a creative background. I sing, do all that stuff, whatever. But in order for us to win, we have to not just chase novelty and the things that feel good, but also have understanding so that the things that we do get to do that we love to do function better instead of just, all right, rinse and repeat on just hoping something catches. You know what I'm saying? It's like, nah, there's actually systems in place for why these people consistently create hits or consistently have great shows or consistently have an impact. And if we're willing to work together that way, and that's why I do work to assess that part first, we have a fighting chance of like growing something great.
Absolutely.
I like that. The As we like wrap up,
Hmm.
just closing the tradition that we have on the podcast, it's like two-part question that we ask every guest who joins the show. First part being, what is a piece of advice that you were given, either professionally or musically, that you felt was amazing, that you typically share with other people? And
Okay.
then on the flip side, was it a piece of advice that you receive that you typically will stay away from, as a being like a negative piece of advice that you don't want to share with other people? Um, what would your perspective be on those two?
Okay. Well, the first group that I was in, uh, when I decided to step away, we had a manager. Her name was Mrs. McNeil. And she wrote me a letter. I think it was like, it was multiple pages. In my mind, it was like 4 pages long. But
Wow.
the only thing I remember from it from back then was don't burn out.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Right. And so getting an idea of like why people burn out and what, like what kind of things, because there's no greatness without obsession. Right. But I still believe in the idea of like being happy. Right. So I see it as a seasons based thing. It's like there's a season of sowing that you have to do. And in that season of sowing, you have to be willing to be obsessed. But there is a harvest. And I believe the goal is to actually be happy, not to just like continue to try to make the most money. You can never make the most money. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So I think it's important to like figure out what you're willing to be obsessed about and have a understand there's going to be a season of song that you have to do obsessively. But then eventually, if you create the right systems, they're sustainable, and then you have a version of your energy that can plateau, and then you kind of expand a certain way. To your second question in regards to that, I, I won't say anybody as specific. Well, I'm sure someone has, but for all creatives, like the idea of like basically have a plan B or what I mean, be realistic. It's like that's terrible advice. It's not really what it is. Like just like you don't tell a lawyer, well, what's your plan B? If you're gonna be a look. If your child tells you they want to be a doctor, you're not gonna be like, well, what's your plan B?
Right.
It's just that you actually need to work at your plan A in an elite manner. You know what I'm saying? If you're trying to do something extraordinary, it's gonna cost extra. The reason why people fail is that yes, it's tough. It's an extremely tough thing to do. It's you're chasing an elite career. If everybody could do it, it wouldn't be an elite thing. But they're not always willing to apply the discipline they would need to do the thing that you would be telling them to plan B for. You know what I'm saying? It's like I watch so many people fall out of this and then they have to apply the same discipline they would have had to apply to this to something else.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, now you're getting up at 7 o'clock every day to go to this job. You could have done that. You know what I'm saying? And you would have got a result like that.
for
It
sure.
costs the work you got to do this thing. If you now decide to go back and become an accountant or whatever, blah blah blah
Right.
blah. If you want to do that elitely, it's the same work. You know,
Mhm.
because it's wasted. And you can't say, well, it's just because I make money at that. No, there's ways to make money at this too. But you would have to the discipline for that. Well, that's that's the advice I push away from. It's like if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. But don't think you have to have a plan B for this. No, you just have to work at plan A a certain way and tell yourself that you don't have burn the boats, as they say. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, that's incredible. Incredible advice, and you've given us so much wisdom today in just an
Well,
hour and
thank
a
you.
half, so we have to both thank you tremendously for this amazing conversation.
Thank
And
you.
to fully wrap up our conversation, we'd love if you could just share with the listeners anything that you're working on right now that you'd love to promote, if you could tell them where to find you on socials to keep up with you.
Okay, yeah. On most platforms, it's DyShon Penn, which is DyShonPenn. A fun note about that. My real last name is Worm. Penn is a stage name. You know what I mean? So it's me as a songwriter, and then its association with Pennsylvania, Philly, that context.
Yes.
So that's where you get that from. It's not from me being an artist, a solo artist. Um, but there's multiple artists that I work with, so I encourage you to check those people out. There's a lot of talented people in our community. Um, Deja Vu is a hip hop artist out of Memphis. So I've had the privilege of working with her along with the team that I help assemble to do that. So you can catch her on socials. And her spelling is unique. So it's DAJHAVUU on socials. Her name is actually not VUU, it's VU, but on socials it has the extra U. So check her out. Um, Sunny, talented R&B artist and alternate R&B artist, alternative R&B. She's I Am Sunny, which is two I's, and Sunny is spelled SUNNIE. There's a really, really talented, powerful performer, R&B artist, Safa. You can check her out. Hers is a little bit more unique to find. Your boyfriend's favorite singer. You know what I mean? The spelling for that, you just have to kind of come through the page. You'll see. Share stuff that these artists are doing all the time. You know what I mean? It, it's it's a community of us, but that's some of the few that you can find just coming through my page. And feel free to DM me, hit me up if you want to hear about any others. I love to share what artists are doing. Obviously, you guys already knew about Diamond Jesse. Um, so that's primarily the tribe that I work with the most.
Amazing.
So
Thank you so, so much for all of the
Thank you.
time, for this incredible conversation today, and
Thank
we'll
you
be
for having it with me. You know
yeah.
what I mean? I'm like, wisdom isn't really wisdom unless somebody receives it or thinks it's valuable. Otherwise, it's just have
absolutely.
the big gray beard. It's just riddles.
Hey, there's always something to share, right?
Yeah,
I'm coming out of this feeling like, oh my god, it's like you're like an encyclopedia. You're like
Yeah.
a font of knowledge. Like it's all good stuff and it spans so many different things.
well, hey man, I hope you stay in touch with me. Socials and have you. There's always things I can learn from other people too. So you know what I mean. So that's why I said I start with what value can I pour into your cup. You know what I mean? The things y'all are doing, there's things I still want to learn how to do or what have you. And it's like, yo, I need to expand that community. So if I'm not willing to pour and get information, how can I circle back and be like, yo, man, how are you doing this thing? Or how can I get into that? Or, at least come support this or what have you. So it's
Absolutely.
about expanding community. It's not just about throwing information. It's like, yo, what bridges can we build?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Like you said, iron sharpening iron.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we'll
Yes.
be here to keep growing and building the community with you. Can guarantee you
Awesome.
that.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much, DyShon.
Thank you.
DyShon
Thank
Penn,
you.
everybody.
All right now.
Bye.